but I can't. Oh, there we go.
It's 8 o'clock. Thank you to those who attended tonight. Yeah, obviously it isn't mandatory, so I wasn't expecting a very large crowd. And usually with these courses that are online or distant, usually most people don't show up. So Kathleen, Tennille, and Alexandra, thanks for showing up. And what tonight is all about is just offering you guys the opportunity to ask any questions that you have about the course. And at the same time, I can just walk you through the outline, the course outline that is, and talk about expectations for the course. And the reason I'm recording it is I'll post it later for any students who weren't able to attend and are actually interested in watching what is going to be said tonight. So I've been teaching this, so I'm Kevin Young, as my name suggests on the screen. And I've been with First Nations University since September 2020. And the first time I taught this course was in the fall of 2021. And usually what happens, or at least what happens in this course, is I teach it once a year. And so I taught it last term, and so now I'm teaching it this term. It's a really incredible course, and I've never taught a course like this before, and I've been teaching since 2016 with University of Manitoba. By the way, I'm located in Winnipeg, so I don't drive from Regina to the University of Manitoba, and conversely, I don't drive from Winnipeg to First Nations University. So I live in Winnipeg. I've been teaching with the University of Manitoba since 2016, and I teach a variety of different courses with the U of M. But I've never taught a course like this before. And that's why it's so extraordinary, because it's a leadership course, but it's a leadership course within the context of reconciliation. And when I first taught the course, there was no textbook with it. It was just various articles, videos, etc. But there was no textbook. So when I was offered to teach the course again this past fall, and I guess I was offered in April of last year, I decided, I should really take a look and see if there's any textbook out there that kind of talks about leadership and reconciliation. So I did some Google searches, and lo and behold, I found a textbook written in Manitoba by a whole bunch of different Manitobans. And I thought, oh my God, this is crazy. So that's the textbook that you guys have, Our Shared Future. And if you've started reading it, I mean, even if you look at the outside, it's not your typical university 500-page put you to sleep textbook. It's more of a novel, and it's fact-based, right? So I'm just going to mute. There you go. Perfect. Yeah. So obviously I purchased it, and obviously I read it I'm old enough to have a yellow highlighter because that's what I grew up using. And so and after I finished reading it, I'm like, I think this would be a great textbook for this course. And I actually reached out to one of the Laura Reimer, who lives in Manitoba and Winnipeg, and I told her we're using their text, and she was so happy. So all of that to say, it's really an incredible course, because it's not just a leadership course, it's a leadership within the context of reconciliation and what leaders can do towards improving reconciliation. And reconciliation has not been a hot topic for the last 30 years or even the last 20 years. I mean, really, it became very noticeable on the Canadian landscape after the release of the TRC, the actions, the 94 actions. And that was, 2015, 2016, around there. And then since then, weekly, you will read about articles of reconciliation and, what governments are doing and individuals are doing, et cetera, et cetera. So, as I said, tonight is just an opportunity for you guys to ask questions, and then I'll take you through the course outline and talk about the individual assignments, and I'm always reachable by email. So if you ever have any questions at any point in time, just reach out to me. This course does not have weekly discussion posts. Which, if you've had any courses like that, you probably saw this and went, oh my God, thank you. When you look at the course outline, I mean, the first thing that's due is like a month and a half from now or a month from now. So you must have gone, yay. Don't make the mistake of putting the textbook aside and then trying to cram, right? I would suggest reading as per the course schedule to keep up with the readings. And that way, in a month from now, you're not going to be, oh my God, what did I do? Why did I wait so long, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to open up my screen here and show you the course outline, which is on the course homepage. And so you should be able to see it now. Our Shared Future is the textbook, and there are digital and paper copies, and you need to have this. There's really no way of getting around it. You need to have the textbook, because I'm going to be looking for you guys to be referencing the textbook through your assignments in the form of citations. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a couple of minutes. So, course objective, introductory seminar examining leadership theory and the skills required for future leaders to lead organizations and communities within a context of reconciliation. You will assess your own attitudes, your own biases, beliefs, and your current leadership skills. And at the end, you'll create a leadership portfolio. The format is everything that's found in the course schedule. You've got your learning objectives, which I'm not going to go through. You can read those on your own. I'm just under the guidelines of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Obviously, don't cheat. Don't plagiarize. It's not worth it. That's why it's highlighted in yellow. But the other thing I'm just going to point out is you lose 10% for every 24 hours that you hand in something late. And that adds up really, really quickly. So my advice is don't hand in anything late. And my second piece of advice is if you know that you're going to be handing in something late, reach out to me in advance of the deadline. So at least I'm aware of it. There may be extenuating circumstances that I may be able to assist with, but I cannot help anyone in any way, shape, or form if you miss the deadline and 3 days later you reach out to me saying, oh, sorry, right? It's just too late. I can't do anything. And then that 10% is going to start adding up. And by the way, 10% per day is lenient. So you might think that's harsh. At the U of M, if you're 6 hours after the deadline, you get 0 automatically. And I have to tell you, as an instructor, it makes it very, very easy for me. I prefer it, by the way, to have someone getting a 0 after a short period of time. And the reason I prefer it is because then someone who submits something 5 days late, I don't have to go and start grading that a week later. Meanwhile, I'm also grading other courses. It just keeps it very, very simple for me, for someone who is grading. That being said, it's 10% every day. So just keep that in mind. Here's your grading. Okay, this is what you have to do. You have to do 3 reflection papers. Each one is worth 10%. You have to do a proposal worth 15%. You have to do a plan worth 25%, and you do a final portfolio, which is worth 30%. What do these things mean? So the definitions are here. The reflections, these are personal takeaways. What have you learned so far in the course? So the first reflection is probably week 5 or week 6 or something like that. So what have you learned so far? And it's not, this says personal takeaways from the week. It's not just from the week, it's from the very beginning of the course. Any readings that you've done, anything at all. That's what you're thinking about. And actually it goes on to say that, just to say, reflect on what you've learned cumulatively to that point. Takeaways are the point at which you're thinking about the topic was impacted, changed, informed, challenged, or intrigued. So this is where I'm going to talk about APA. I don't want you guys making the same mistakes as other students have done, where you look at this and go, oh, it's a personal reflection. Okay, I'm just going to give you my opinion. That is not what I'm looking for. And if you scroll down, because I can scroll down, you can't, but you can see in highlighted yellow, big, black, bold letters, it says, in-text citations and references following APA are required for everything. The textbook, and then readings that you will find, like other readings that you will find in the weeks, and viewing materials, videos, will be the primary sources of your citations. For me, the most important is the textbook. That's the primary source. And then any other materials you want to use, whether it's videos, whether it's a PDF article, it doesn't matter. Those are secondary. I want proof that you are reading and understanding and able to apply the textbook, because I took the time to find it and I took the time to read it, and I want you guys to read it. So this is why I don't want a paper that says, I think the sky is blue, because when I look up in the air, it looks blue, right? No, I don't want that. What I want is, these are reflections, impacts that are made on you, but that the impact is coming from the textbook and any of the other materials that you've read. So, you know, you read chapter 1, chapter 2 of the textbook, there may be something in there that triggers you, maybe something there, oh, hey, I didn't know that, or wow, that's really interesting. That's what I want to see incorporated into these reflections, into your proposal, into your plan, into your portfolio. There's a reason that the textbook is required, because you're supposed to read it. So, and I'll, if you haven't, oh, sure, Tennille, go ahead. Yeah, I'll take questions at any point. Go ahead. I may have to, okay, I was going to stop sharing, but I can actually hear you. So go ahead.
Okay, good. So even though it's like in-text citations and everything, it's still a reflection piece. Are you using first-person writing?
Yes, you are.
Like, I found that the textbook.
Yes, you are using first person because it is a personal reflection. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yep.
Thank you.
Absolutely. It's a very good question. And you know, one of the reasons Tennille may have asked, I suspect this is the reason, is that when in academic papers in university, when you're using APA and citations, you generally are writing in third person. You're not necessarily writing in first person. So I think that's why she asked. This is an interesting combination of a personal reflection, but I'm asking that in-text citations are used. And that is not necessarily orthodox by universities, because personal reflections could be your standard, oh, I think this and I felt this, but it's very difficult to grade that, and it doesn't demonstrate that you've done any of the reading whatsoever. So that's why I asked for the in-text citations. Rakia, you have your hand raised.
So my question is, since it's a personal reflection, and just like she asked, we could use first person,
Mhm.
but is it supposed to be like, for example, I want to pick to write on topic of week 4.
Yes,
Should I just write on week 4, or from
Yes, you
week
can.
1, I have to connect everything
Nope.
together?
nope, you,
Okay.
nope, you can write on anything that, any of the course materials.
Okay.
But just keep in mind, the class text is the primary source. So I'm just going to go and say it. I always want to see that class textbook used. So you can watch a video, and that may be the greatest impact. And you may want to write your reflection on that video, and that is fine. But include something from the textbook as well. Because look, I can watch a 10-minute video and choose that as my easiest path and not even open up the textbook. And I don't want anyone doing that. I want everyone reading the textbook. And that's why I say the textbook is the primary source. So even though your reflection may be focused on one of the videos that you saw in week 5, 6, 7, whatever, I still would like to see you throw in some information from the textbook. If you can tie in the information from the video to information that you read in the textbook, that would be ideal. Make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, awesome. Any other questions? If you have any other questions, just unmute your mic.
Okay,
Nope.
sorry.
Go ahead.
How long is this paper? The reflection piece?
So you're not going to find those instructions in the course outline. You find those instructions off of the course homepage. So
Oh,
when you click on week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, you're not going to find anything until week 5, because I think that's, memory serves, week 5 is when the first reflection is due.
okay.
And when you click on week 5, again, this is memory, but if you click on week 5, you'll see reflection. You click on the link and it will tell you all of the instructions. They're not very long. I want to say 3 pages, double spaced. So they're not very lengthy.
So will we have instructions for the reconciliation action proposal and the action plan and the leadership portfolio
Yep.
all more in
Yep.
throughout the weeks?
And that's what you will always find. Like, quite frankly, you should never find instructions for assignments within a course outline. That's not the place to have instruction. I'm just giving you my personal opinion, and it's based on my experience of teaching since 2016. So instructions for assignments should never be found in a course outline. This is the course outline is the equivalent to your syllabus. And the reason is because if you include the instructions, then suddenly your course outline or your course syllabus becomes like 15 to 20 pages long. It's just a bad idea all around. So, I mean, if you guys have experienced that before, well, I would disagree with the people who wrote the course outline. So, and quite frankly, if you put those instructions into course outline, you wouldn't remember it. You'd always have to be going back. So, what I would advise or recommend is go to the course homepage and click on each week to see what's due. And there won't be much because this course doesn't have very many things that are due. It's 3 reflection papers, a proposal, a plan, and a leadership portfolio. That's 6 things in 3 months. And the first reflection paper isn't due until week 5 anyways. So you'll find all the instructions there on the course homepage. Okay, those are the reflection papers. Then there's a proposal. It's worth 15%. It's designed to get you thinking about your plan. So the proposal that you write is the beginning of what your plan is going to be. And again, there are instructions about what that proposal is under whatever want to say week 8. I think that's where the proposal is found. And I'll talk a little bit more about those when I'm off of this. The plan is sort of the culmination of all the work that you've done within the proposal, and then adding to that some final details to make up the plan, and that is worth 25%. And then at the very end of the course is the portfolio, and that combines everything that you've done. You're actually cutting and pasting and putting together a lot of the materials you've already developed, and that is worth 30%. If any of these assignments are not handed in, then you get an NP, not passed. All right. This is the course schedule. This is handy because it actually in the right-hand column, well, it's handy for a lot of reasons because it tells you all the readings you have to do. But I mean, you'll find that in each of the weeks as well. But it's handy because in this one spot, you will see on the right-hand column everything that is due and when. So week 5, reflection paper 1, due February 6. You scroll down, the proposal is week 8, due March 6. Then week 9, another reflection paper. Week 11, the plan. Week 12, another reflection paper. And finally, the portfolio, which is due April 25. Those are the deadlines. You want to put those in your calendar, whatever you want to do, so you don't forget, so you don't get penalized by handing in late. That would be my recommendation. Of course, the center column has all of the readings. And so week 1, it's, take a look at the course outline, the APA documents, the 94 calls to action, and there were class introductions as well. Okay, and then week 2, which is January 11, which is this past week, that's when you actually begin reading the textbook, Our Shared Future. Not a lot of pages, 1 to 7, and then so forth and so forth, and you keep scrolling down. Okay, so before I close this course outline, are there any questions about the course outline, or any questions at all that have been prompted by what I've been talking about here? Oh, we're good. Okay. Right. So I'm gonna do this and do this. Okay. So now you should be able to see the course homepage, and you can see how everything is broken into these tiles: week 1, week 2, week 3, etc. So what I would suggest, you now know what the textbook is. It's the only thing you have to purchase. And it's not overly expensive. It's not some of the stupid amounts of money for a textbook, like $300. It's nowhere near that. But what I would suggest is just take the time, sit back and relax, and click on each of these tiles and just be aware of what these documents are. The instructor welcome letter is just information about me. It's not overly valuable, other than my LinkedIn URL is in there. That could be valuable to you. The reason being is any student that I teach at any institution, I offer them the same courtesy, and that is, if you ever need a reference, I'm more than happy to provide one for you. I also, if you connect with me on LinkedIn, you have access to my network. And, I don't know where any of you are located. I assume many of you are in Saskatchewan. So, you probably don't want to move to Manitoba, and I understand that. But you may need a reference at some point. Who knows, right? So you're free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Class introductions, that's just a way for you guys to talk to each other, learn a little bit about each other. The 94 calls to action, that's a pretty big read. So you want to go through there, take the time, because those 94 calls to action are used in some of the later assignments. You have to choose 1 or 2, not more than 2, 1 or 2 of the calls to action so you can use it in your proposal and in your plan. So I would suggest going through those 94 calls, and whichever one speaks to you the most, then you keep that in the back of your mind. And here is the APA folder. So what we have in here, we have two things. We have an APA document, which gives you some guidelines on what APA is all about. Now, you guys may have already studied APA or learned about APA in other courses that you've taken. That's on the assumption this is not your very first university course. I'm assuming that. If I'm wrong, forgive me and you can correct me. But if you've taken more than 1 year, if this is not your first university course, then you've probably heard of APA before. And so it gives you some guidelines on how to format your papers. That's the APA document. The sample APA paper is a paper that I wrote within a group about 10 years ago. And you should be able to see it now. It's called Analysis of Famous Leaders. If you can't see it, just say something. But this is an in-text citation. where it said-
I'm
Yep,
not
can you
sure.
see it? No?
No, it's like
Okay.
a white screen.
Okay, no problem. That's why I wanted to know. Thank you very much for saying something. All right. Okay, here it is. Here it is. So this is an example of an in-text citation right here, where it says Gallo, 2011. That is an in-text citation. What is an in-text citation? Well, what it is anytime you read something in life and it gives you new information, an idea, whatever, and you go to write about that idea is not yours. It belongs to someone else. And if you don't give credit to that author, then you're plagiarizing, which is serious. So the guy who was in my group, he was the one who wrote this first paragraph. And so if I take this as an example, the beginning of the sentence that starts off that says, for instance. So I'll just read the sentence. For instance, Branson, this is Richard Branson, like multi-billionaire Richard Branson, is commonly known to promote and offer a great number of vacation days, flex time, and paid time off than other companies. He, the guy in my group, he didn't know that just off the top of his head. He read about that. And where did he read about that? He read about it in an article written by an author by the last name of Gallo. So when he wrote that into our paper, he realized I have to give credit to where I found the information. And the author's name was Gallo. 2011 is simply the year of publication. That's an in-text citation. And you will see these throughout this paper. Typically, it's one citation per paragraph. Here's another one right here. I use that as a guide. One citation per paragraph is, I like it. You can have more than one citation per paragraph for sure, but simply as a guide, it's a good way, because what it's showing is the person is reading information and they are using that information to support their arguments. It's not just an opinion. They're using information that they read and understood, and then they're able to apply. So these are all in-text citations. And you guys are free to read the paper and just kind of get an idea of that. At the very end of the paper is called a references page. It is a separate page, and this is where you will find all of the sources of your information listed by alphabetical order. This has a lot of references in it. when you guys write assignments for this course, you're never going to have this number of references. I would always like to see the textbook as the number one, and then you may write, you know, there may be a video or an article or something like that that you read that you may also want to reference. But for this course, you're going to have maybe 2, 3 at the most references because you don't really need more than that. This paper was a little bit longer. It had 4 writers, so all of us were doing separate research, and that's why there are so many references here. So you guys are free to take a look at that paper and get an idea. But the whole, if I go back just to that first paragraph, so the textbook that you guys have is Our Shared Future, and it's got like 2 editors, and then each chapter has a different author. And so essentially, you know, you might read chapter 3. Actually, I'll just grab it. You might read, I don't know, take your chapter 3, Walking in the Footsteps of the Peacemaker. So the author of chapter 3 was Brian Rice. So in week 5, when you guys write your reflection, if, for example, chapter 3 was the one that was just spoke to you, was so powerful, then your reflection is going to include information from Brian Rice. And so the citation would be in parentheses, Rice, which is his last name, comma, and then the year of publication for the for that particular piece of writing that he did. In this case, what is this called here? Yeah, I believe it's 2013. But if you're ever unsure, just reach out to me. You could, and the full text, I mean, it's kind of an interesting book because it's not like, this book isn't written by one person. If it was, it just would make it so much easier. It's a collection of authors, which actually makes it more interesting. But this textbook, its publication, its copyright is 2020. So, you know, worst case scenario, you can't determine when the article was written of chapter 3 or chapter 4. You could use 2020, but you should be able to find the year of copyright after you've read the chapter. Those are in text citations. I'm going to be looking for them. If you don't include them, your grade is impacted, and not positively. So when I don't see in-text citations, you're not showing me that you're reading the information. And so the grade is definitely impacted. I'm going to close that. Okay, so I showed you the course outline. I showed you the 2 APA sources. I didn't open up the first APA document, but basically what that is talking about is under APA, usually it's Times New Roman, which is the font. It's font size 12, double spacing, indenting first paragraphs. There's a list of different things. I'm going to tell you what I care about. I don't care about Times New Roman. As long as you use a font that I can read, I don't care about Times New Roman. I don't care about font size 12. Again, as long as it's a font that I can read, I don't care about font size 12. I don't even really care about the indenting of paragraphs, but I really care about those in-text citations, and I care about the references at the end. So just keep that in mind. Any questions so far on the course outline or the APA that I have mentioned? Oh, okay. So that's the paper. Let's see. Oh, sorry. I want to go back to this, get rid of that. This, that's what I wanted right there. So there we go. Okay, so that's week 1. There's an assignment grading rubric as well. You can take a look at that. The rubric is essentially going to support what I've already said. So what do I look for? Whether it's your proposal, whether it's your plan, whether it's your reflections, it doesn't matter. I'm looking for proof that you've read the textbook. I'm looking at like the assigned chapters. I'm looking that you've read the other materials for the weeks. I'm looking that you watch the videos. I'm looking for your writing as well. And what I mean by that is, first of all, proofreading is important. Okay, so when you write a paper, don't just write it and hand it in. Don't do that. Big mistake. Write it, read it a couple of times before you submit it, because chances are there are going to be some basic mistakes that you didn't even know were there. Maybe you typed too quickly. It doesn't really matter. So I'm a bit of a grammar freak. I see all errors. It's a cursing and it's a curse and a blessing all at the same time. But I do see errors. However, where it really bothers me is if it's such an obvious error that you should have caught it, that's where it's going to impact your grade. If you use, you know, if you're trying out a new word and you're trying to impress me and it's, you know, 4 syllables long, it's a really big word and there's a mistake in there. But if you spell the wrong, or you forget to have a period at the end of a sentence, or the beginning of your sentence doesn't have a capital letter, or the worst of the worst, you spell I in the lowercase, I dot. You're never supposed to spell it that way, ever, unless you're texting someone. And papers don't count as texting. So I see these mistakes, and if they are obvious, and I know that you should have known not to include it, then yeah, no, Sheena, yeah, these are true examples. So that's why I'm telling people. That's why I'm gonna hit you hard on the grading, because I don't want you making those kinds of mistakes. And I know it's possible some of you may be thinking, wait a second, this is a leadership and reconciliation course. What does this have to do with grammar? Well, the thing is that I teach communication courses, and it doesn't matter whether this is project management, marketing, labor relations, it makes no difference whatsoever, because your communication skills, how you write and how you speak, are what carry you for the rest of your life. And if you have been a lazy writer in the past, or even if you just not even lazy, but even if you haven't spent a great deal of time on your writing, and if other people have allowed you to get by on that, and they haven't stopped you in your tracks saying, you should really proofread, you know, you need to spend more time on your writing, then I'm going to be the first one to do that for you. Welcome. So although this is not a writing class, I will tell you when I need to, that you need to spend more time on proofreading. And again, I'm talking about, you know, very obvious grammatical issues. I've had students submit papers where the sentence ends mid-sentence. It just ends, like there's no other sentence. So like very obvious errors. I mean, it makes no sense whatsoever, right? So proofread. Okay, so you go through week 1. And then, as I said, just before you actually start reading any of this, and some of you may already be ahead of the game, and that's fantastic. But in the event that you haven't done anything, and that's okay, because nothing is due until week 5 anyways. But in the event you haven't done anything at all, what I would suggest is just take an hour and a half, and just click on each of these tiles. And okay, week 2. Okay, what's this? What is leadership and why does it matter? I'm going to click on this. Okay, so there's a little thing at the top. There's a video I got to watch, and the textbook, read pages 1 through 7. Okay, all right, so that's week 2. Okay, it's not going to kill me. And go through each of these so that you know what you have to look forward to in the future, right? So week 3, using the same example as week 2, click on readings. What do I need to read? Okay, so I got to read the textbook, pages 9 to 27, and some leadership surveys, and then by the way, it says right there, the leadership surveys, you complete them by week 4, but you don't hand them in until the very end of the course. They are submitted as part of your portfolio. And if you scroll down, you can see the 7 as a Word document, the 7 most common leadership styles. And then you've got a transcript and a link of Goldman leadership styles. And then there's a PowerPoint called Understanding Leadership Styles. So I'm just going to back out of that. And that's what I would suggest that you do. Just take the time, no pressure, no deadlines. Just take the time and click on each of these things and just know what's included in each of these weeks. This course has the advantage, as I said at the very beginning, there's nothing due until week 5. And it's your first reflection, and it's not due until Monday, February 6th. That's 3 weeks away. So if anything, this course could be threatening to students, not because of how much work there is, but because of the gaps in between that give you a false sense of security. It's like those courses you may have taken before where you start in September, but there's nothing actually due until December. And you go, oh, wow, I've got the next like 2 months of not having to do anything, right? And then everything crashes and burns in December. So this is one of those courses that could get away from you if you don't take the necessary time per week, do the readings, take some notes, do what I did. You know, if you want, take a yellow highlighter, just, you know, highlight whatever sections that mean something to you, or circle them, or however people do it digitally. If you have a digital textbook, I don't know, I guess you could highlight it digitally. But that's what you're going to want to do. Now, since I'm on this page, this is exactly what I was saying to Neil a little bit earlier. All of the instructions are found in in UR courses. So reflection 1, here it is. Tennille had asked, how long is it supposed to be? There it is, 500-word essay. Just in the event, some of you may ask the question, because God knows I've been asked this question before a million times. So when you say 500 words, is like 300 okay? No, I mean, no, it's not. So if there's a number, do me a favor, hit the number. You can go over the number if you want. Don't go crazy over the number. Don't double it. Don't make it 1,000, because that's too much information. But if it says 500, come close to 500. 450, 480, 540. You know, if you submit something that's 250 words, I don't need to count it to know that you've done half of the work of everyone else. Why? Because you know how many students are in this class? 60. So I'm reading, no, I mean, not everyone's going to stay in the class, but so 50 are going to stay in this class, right? So I'm going to be reading 50. Yeah, $4.99 is just fine. I'm going to be reading 50 papers. And on the assumption that the majority of the students, and this is typically the case, majority of students do write to the word expectation, right? 500 is not the maximum, it's not the minimum. It just says 500-word essay. Most students will write around 500 words. So guess what? As the person who's reading every single one of them, I know how long 500 pages, I know how long 500 words are. So read 500, yeah, 500 words. Oh, 250. I mean, it's going to be half the length. Immediately, I'm going to know, and the grade is going to get hit. So if it says 500 words, come close to 500 words or over a little bit. 100 words over, 150 over is fine. But if you start going under in any sort of dramatic fashion, the grade is impacted. Rakia, you have your hand up.
Yeah, so with this question I'm going through now, like the reflection one, number one is talking about introduce yourself however you feel comfortable. For example, where you're from. So I will most likely want to relate it to my origin, like where I'm coming from before I moved to Canada, but that does not require in-text citation
No.
there, or if I find that's the question I'm trying to ask.
Yeah.
But we could get in-text citation at number 3
Correct.
and number 4, because those are the ones that are related to a general class conversation.
Even 2.
Okay.
Even question number 2.
Okay.
You can relate. Okay. So for example, how's your life experience, upbringing, job, education, family influence you as a leader? You may read something in the textbook that has a connection to your life experience. It may mention something about a leader, and you're like, oh, wow, that's new information. So even number 2 is a possibility, but number 3 for sure, number 4, yes. But no, you're right. Question 1 is just, where are you from? I mean, no, there's no need for in-text citations there. But in-text citations definitely in the paper related to some of those later questions. Yes, absolutely. Make sense?
Thank you. Yes. Thank
Awesome.
you.
Excellent. Tennille.
How many in-text citations?
Well, as I said, the guideline I hand out to students who care to listen to what I have to say, and
Mhm.
most don't, but 1 per paragraph is a good guideline. Now, obviously, there's a factor in there, and that is depending on how long your paragraphs are. So a paragraph should really be, 5 to 8 sentences, and that means like 5 to 8 lines, really. So a sentence, assuming a sentence is a line or somewhere close to that. And I'm breaking this down because I do have, and I have had a lot of students who think that they can write a page of information with no paragraphs, just like one huge paragraph. And I don't like that. It is not a good form of writing. It is very difficult on the reader, because at some point I'm actually taking my finger and I'm putting it up on the screen, just trying to follow the lines so I don't repeat sentences that I've already read. So paragraphs should not be overly lengthy. Again, 5 to 8 lines for a paragraph, and in there, 1 citation, maybe 2. The risk, and I've seen this before, it doesn't happen very often, but it does happen, where someone goes overboard and every sentence they put in is a citation. That is wrong, because then none of the writing is theirs. It's all information that is taken from the textbook. And citations can be one of 2 forms. They can be a direct quote, where word for word, you are taking the information from the textbook, word for word. And if you do that, you have to put quotations around it, because you're taking word for word. You have to put quotations around that sentence, and you have to include a page number in the citation. So Young, for example, my last name, comma, 2020, comma, page 12. But if it's not a direct quote, you don't need a page number. You don't need quotations. But I have had some students who go, oh, this guy likes in-text citations. I'm going to impress him. And every sentence is an in-text citation. And then I slam them and say, no, what you're supposed to be doing is writing your own paper in your own words and have it supported your thoughts are supported by the textbook, not the other way around. Not supposed to be writing everything out of the textbook and then once in a while supporting something with your own idea. So 1 to 2 citations per paragraph, just fine. 500-word essay, it's about 2 pages. It asks the following questions. And then again, in black bold letters, in text citations and references, following APA, especially looking for the class. I mean, these are things I already said. And then, you know, you're demonstrating to me that you're reading it, you're understanding it, you're able to apply the information in your thought process. Okay, makes sense? There are 3 reflections. The instructions are not identical. So, you know, you have to take a look at each reflection. Now that was week 5. If we go to week 6, for example, no assignments. Week 7, no assignments. Week 8, your second assignment. And this is the proposal. So here we are, we have the instructions. So the proposal is designed to get you thinking about your plan midway through the course. So you can be gathering and processing course material. Your plan may end up being a little bit different from your proposal, but shouldn't be drastically different. How long is it supposed to be? 3 pages, double spaced, and should include what your initiative, your event, your activity is going to be, and I'll talk about that in a second. How are you going to lead this? Identify which of the TRC calls to action your event most closely relates to, no more than 2, and describe who your target audience, attendees, participants would be for your reconciliation. Your proposal must be viable. What does that mean? It means it's got to be realistic, and it's something that you can truly and legitimately accomplish if you were to take action on it. Therefore, don't come up with a proposal that you are unable to lead and see through to completion. Your proposal must include all of the necessary information to prove to me that you are able to take action. If that information is not provided, your proposal will only be considered hypothetical in nature and will have minimal credibility. I'll explain all of that, but just again, in text citations, right? All of that is included there. So what is this proposal all about? So the idea within 3 pages is to come up after you're already reading the TRC calls to action. You're supposed to be reading that, you know, first week, 2 weeks, whatever. You can read it now, it's fine. But considering this is a course on leadership and reconciliation, you're supposed to come up with an idea, an action, an initiative that combines that leadership and reconciliation. It doesn't have to be big. In fact, the bigger it is, the more likely it's not going to happen. Okay, so I'll give you an example of something that can't happen. So someone writes a paper and says, I want to have Saskatchewan education, Saskatchewan government. I want the Saskatchewan government to change their education curriculum, and I want them to talk about residential schooling from grade 6 to grade 12. Well, isn't that wonderful? I mean, geez, who wouldn't want that? And then I challenge the student, go, are you the premier of the province? No, cabinet minister? I mean, how are you going to make this happen? Oh, well, I don't know. Not viable. It's not doable. You can't do it. I mean, it's a great idea, but you can't do it. Compare that to, you know, through this course, I've learned so much about reconciliation, the power of reconciliation, the 60 scoop, you know, missing, murdered Indigenous women, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm going to start a petition. I'm going to start an online petition. I have a Facebook page. I'm going to write a letter, and I'm going to get people to sign it. I'm going to send it to my minister. Blah, blah, blah. Doable? Absolutely. Any of us could do that because, you know, we use social media, and we could start a petition. Member of the church, you go to church every week. You know, there's a church group. I know all the people there. I'm going to start an initiative there. I'm going to, I'd like to talk to them about residential schooling, for example, and so forth and so forth. So you have lots of time to think about, what could I do? What's important to me? And the way you gather this idea is by reading the 94 calls to action. And somewhere in those 94 calls, there's probably something that really speaks to you. Oh yeah, no, this is important to me. Now, how can I actually turn this into something? And so the whole point of this is, I don't, and I've said this to other students before in this course, I don't want this to be the proposal and the plan. I don't want it to be just another academic paper, another paper that you write in university and you forget about 3 weeks later, like every other paper that we all write, right? I want this one to have the most meaning for you guys. And even if you don't follow up on it, and it's not like I'm going to know, because it's not like 6 months from now I'm going to give, Tennille a call and say, hey, Tennille, did you ever actually pursue that, that proposal plan? You know, I'm really interested. No, I'm not going to do that. But the fact of the matter is that I want you to write it and develop it thinking that it may be something that you take action on. And it might be partnering with First Nations University in providing some level of education. It could be so many different ideas. Oh my God. I mean, I had a student in the last term, and she wanted to create, she had a backyard that was not fully landscaped. And she came with this idea to recreate it, to do some landscaping that would bring forth new flowers, and all in the spirit of reconciliation. Like, she was bringing indigenous flowers and plants and things like that. And I just thought, wow, I mean, what a fantastic idea. So being creative, being innovative, yes, it could be the petition to a minister, for sure. I had a student who was a vice principal at a school, and her idea was, I'm going to educate the teachers on residential schooling. Is it viable? Yeah, she's the vice principal. She's in a position of power and leadership. She can make that happen. I had a student who's a group home worker, and he wanted to educate his fellow coworkers. That's doable too. You could have a sharing circle. There are just so many different ideas. And again, the 94 calls to action, something, chances are, is there in there that will create a spark. And even if it isn't, everything you've read in the media about reconciliation over the last, as I said, 6-7 years, there's probably something there. Orange Shirt Day, maybe you want to do something like that. Maybe you want to design Dreamweavers, like a completely different Dreamweaver. So many different ideas, and you guys get to choose. And so passion should be driving it. The 94 calls to action is one source where you may get ideas, but the textbook is another. The videos, you can watch that. I mean, you can, like, no one's stopping you from going ahead, reading ahead. You can go to week 2, you can go to week 3, you can go to week 4, you can go to week 12 if you want, and read the materials, just sitting back, relaxing and reading and absorbing the information, looking for an idea for your proposal and your plan. Because ultimately, as I said, I want it to carry meaning. I don't want it to be just another academic paper. I want it to be something that means something for you and to you, that should you decide, I actually want to do this, that you can. It's something within your power to do. Okay, it's 9 o'clock. And I mean, I said it for an hour and a half, but it doesn't really matter. But just in the event that some of you are on a 1 hour timeline or what have you, I've done a lot of talking. But I've given you the big picture, right? The course outline is the key. It's the critical piece because it has the schedule, it has the deadlines, it has your grade breakdown, etc. The tiles, I like the tiles. Most people don't use them, but I like how they separate things out. And I think it's easy for people to follow. So you could just take a look at those and get an idea of, start thinking about what your proposal is going to be. I mean, it's weeks away, it's week 8, but you have all this time. And don't wait until the very end. Start reading the textbook. I'm sure you'll like it. I mean, here's the thing. There are some articles, well, no, I shouldn't say articles. There are some chapters that are going to mean more to you than other chapters. That's just the way it is. Different authors, different writing styles, etc. And I'm going to give you the best example. Okay. I read this textbook. There's a particular chapter in here I didn't really like. I didn't like it. I didn't like the way the guy wrote. I didn't like the content. And so I thought I'll just exclude it from the reading. So we can, students can skip this chapter. And then I thought about it. I'm like, wait a second. Why would I do that? That's just me. That's like me watching a commercial on television and going, I hate this commercial. And, someone else looks at it and loves it. So I thought, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to keep it in there. And you know what? Quite a few students, that was their favorite chapter. I found that in the assignments. I'm like, good for me that I didn't exclude it because I'm not you. My story is not yours, right? I'm not Indigenous. I'm a white male. I'm of Scottish background. I'm 51 years old, and the list goes on and on and on. And so everything is different. And through my eyes, I see things differently. And that's exactly why I kept all the chapters in there, because things mean different things to different people. So, any questions? This is not the end, obviously. You guys can reach out anytime and ask questions. I also do a second one of these, typically in the, what are we now, January? It ends in April. So I would typically do a second video, maybe a second meeting in March. Do the same thing. Anyone who wants to show up can. Otherwise, that's it, right? But you guys are free to email me anytime if you want to have a Zoom call with me. That can be done too. And that just reminded me. I'm going to give you one more example. So I had a student who was having a difficulty coming up with a proposal. His first proposal was completely not viable, and so I told him, right? And so he said, "Can we have a Zoom call?" Sure. So we did. And he goes, I don't know where to begin. All right. Do you work? Yes. What do you do? I work for the Saskatchewan government. All right. What do you do for the Saskatchewan government? I work in road safety. So what does that involve? I educate people on the importance of seatbelts and airbags, and car seats. And okay. All right. And what else does that involve? Well, we do a bunch of different things. We hand out balloons and hand out drawing, coloring books to kids. And then suddenly it just hit him. He's like, wait a second. The coloring books that we hand out, they're all Caucasian kids. They're all Caucasian images. And he's like, I could do one with Indigenous First Nation kids and work with my department and come up with a new coloring book focused on Indigenous kids. I'm like, you did it. You just came up with an idea that you can control for. And that's what he did. So these ideas are all around us. We don't necessarily think about them, but whatever that proposal and plan are going to be has to be something that you can actually control and actually do, right? So it doesn't have to be big pie in the sky, because usually those ideas are just, they're not tangible. You can't do it. It could be very, very small. Okay, so any questions from Tennille, Rakia, Jadav? I'm looking at Kathleen, Sheena. Any questions at all before we go?
No, I just wanted to talk to you like when everyone goes.
No problem.
I just
That can
want
be
to
done.
have a few words with you.
Yeah, for sure. That can be done. Anybody else?
Thank you very much. This is my first class this semester that seems a bit relaxing. So
Awesome.
thank
That's
you. Have a
great. Well,
great night.
you do get to relax, right? And that gives you some time to think about what you want to do. So that's fantastic. Good. I'm glad to hear that. If no other questions, you guys are free to go. Sheena, you can stick around, and that's it. Okay. All right. Good luck with the course. Reach out anytime. All right, Kathleen, you can go too. I'm just going to stop the recording here.